Good morning, everyone. It's April 10th, and we're starting our planning board meeting. The first item this morning is regulatory extension requests. We have three. The first one is MHP Amherst preliminary plan, site plan, and forest conservation plan, extension request number 2. I'll have to recuse myself on this one, but is there a motion to approve the Amherst project extension?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the Amherst project extension.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4-0. The next is the 7070 Arlington Road preliminary plan, sketch plan extension request number 1, where staff is recommending approval of the extension request. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the extension request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it 5-0. And the last one is Emery Grove Village pre-preliminary plan extension request number 2, where staff is recommending approval of the extension request. Do I have a motion for approval?
Yeah, move to approve the extension request.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it 5-0. Next is item number 4, the planning director's roundtable discussion. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. For the record, Jason Sartori, Planning Director, and thrilled to be here this morning on this beautiful sunny day and presenting our Planning Director's report. So I'll just jump right in and show you a summary of the things we're going to touch on today. We're going to start by talking about the Bethesda Downtown Plan, the MMPA for that. Then we'll talk about Earth Month. Obviously, April, everyone knows, is Earth Month, so we'll talk a little bit about that and some of the programs that we work on in Montgomery County, in Montgomery Planning, that relate to Earth Month, including Reforest Montgomery, and celebrating 5 years of Reforest Montgomery. We have the team here with us today. And then I'll give a couple of quick personnel updates. So this past Tuesday, the County Council approved the Bethesda Downtown Minor Master Plan Amendment, and the headline of the plan, as you know, is the removal of the cap on total development downtown. We think, obviously, this will be a great opportunity to strengthen Bethesda's economic competitiveness and to deliver on many of the amenities that the community has been asking for, like more parks and a rec center. I did want to share with you a little bit about some of the changes that the County Council made from the Planning Board's draft. I will say that it was relatively minimal, which is quite impressive. So kudos to you and to the team. First, they added some language in that would require planning staff to analyze the plan's progress every 5 years with a comprehensive study of the implementation of the plan. And then in recognition of POPs, the privately owned public spaces, that they don't provide the same level of long-term control of open space that you get with an actual parkland dedication. The council decided to, and also in an attempt to try to incentivize more of the dedication as opposed to the POPs, the council included some language that would ensure that the PIP reductions to the reductions to the PIP for the POPs are not equal to the PIP reductions for parkland dedication. I keep saying that when we have, the pups in the parks in the POPs, that got a PIP, it would be really great for us to talk about the pups in the parks for the POPs. Well, anyway, and then with regard to the portion of the plan area that the Planning Board had recommended for expansion of the height incentive area, the council actually adopted language. They did not include that expansion, but they adopted language in the plan that called for further vetting of that idea and for that to be handled through a future ZTA. And then finally, when discussing the study of transit services, they made some minor text changes that added recognition that that WMATA, state, and regional transit providers are part of that effort. And so in addition to thanking the many community stakeholders who provided valuable feedback on the plan, including members of the Bethesda Implementation Advisory Committee and the council and council staff, particularly Pam Dunn and Stephen Kenny, I did want to take a moment to congratulate and acknowledge all of the commission staff that worked on this and contributed to this plan effort. a couple of whom are here today. So want to begin, folks from our Down County Planning Division. We have Larissa Clevin, Stephanie Dickel, Grace Bogdan, Atara Margulies, Tyler Milam, Tina Schneider, and Kashil Nelson. Then we have Dave Anspacher, Lisa Gavoni, Jesus Beck, Jun Yang, and John Ryder from Countywide Planning and Policy. Carrie McCarthy, Ben Kraft, James Lee, and Nick Holdscomb from Research and Strategic Projects. Chris Pfeiffer, Darrell Godfrey, George Lettuce, Christine Rufo, and Meg Irving from the Communications Division, and Katie Mancarini from Up County Planning, and then Christy Chabati, Henry Coppola, and Darcy Buckley with Parks. And of course, in the room, Elsa Heisel McCoy, who led this effort, all while also serving as chief of his division, which is an impressive kind of undertaking. And so, and I'm sure I've missed a few other people that at some point got their hands on this plan and in reviewing it, and including Deputy Director Robert Cronenberg and others. But it just goes to highlight just how many people contribute to an effort like a master plan, even one that was pretty targeted and relatively short in timeline in the time frame. It really just goes to show you that we still have so many people from across the department that get their hands on it and contribute to that effort. And so we're really grateful for everyone's contributions. So I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate them. You will obviously get a chance to see this when it comes back for your final review and acceptance of the council's changes, and it goes to the full commission. But I want to take a moment to just congratulate them. So, thank you. Okay, so again, as you know, April is Earth Month, and I wanted to highlight a few related efforts and programs that we have going on here at Montgomery Planning. I'm pleased to share that we partnered with our friends at DEP and DPS in helping to get Montgomery County a Soul Smart Platinum designation from the U.S. Department of Energy. This achievement shows that we have met national best practices specified in the Soul Smart criteria to increase energy options in our communities. The Energy Department's Soul Smart designation recognizes cities, towns, counties, and regional organizations that have adopted measures that help make solar energy more affordable and accessible. For us, this achievement also highlights our partnerships with our county government agencies and partners. We also have a new blog post about cooling our corridors. The University Boulevard Corridor Plan is our first master plan to spell out what are called cool corridor recommendations. The concept is all about surrounding ourselves with a lot more trees. The illustration on this page, on the screen, is an example of kind of consistent with the tree canopy that we want to see along our major road. A cool corridor would have ample shade for people waiting at bus stops, for children walking to schools. It would also have more trees in parking lots, both for shade and to help absorb and control stormwater. These ideas will be explored with other major transportation in other major transportation corridor plans, and you'll be getting a chance to see some more details of these types of recommendations as we continue to review the University Boulevard Corridor Plan. And finally, I'm pleased to share that—
Can I just ask questions about cool concept, Montgomery concept? This is the first time I hear the name. Maybe you had brought it up before, and I do not know what is exactly. I think it's a wonderful idea to have more trees, but at the same time, it needs, as part of that, how to maintain them and how to make sure that they survive, and what is the plan for replacement and neutralize, make sure that they survive and replace them if they die. So it's a big effort that includes for planning, implementation, and maintenance. And I think it's a great idea. We can never have, enough trees everywhere that we can have.
Thank you. We can talk a little bit more about that in the context of the UBC plan, but also the team can talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing through Reforest Montgomery and how those efforts are maintained over time in those trees, separate from kind of the concept of the cool corridors. So I did want to, I mentioned earlier that it's the 5-year anniversary of our Reforest Montgomery plan program, and we have Kelsey Desmond, Mia Rothberg, and Reagan Ogburn here with us today to talk about the program, and it's 5 years and our progress that we've made. So I'll hand it over to them.
Great, thank you. Doing some shifting. Good morning, Board, and thank you so much for having us this morning. For the record, my name is Kelsey Desmond. I'm the Forest Conservation Planner 3, and this week we are celebrating 5 years of the Reforest Montgomery brand. Reforest Montgomery is a suite of programs fully supported by the fee in lieu payments that make up the Forest Conservation Fund. We currently have 3 reforestation programs and 4 tree planting programs. And though Reforest Montgomery as a brand was launched in spring of 2020, some of the programs have existed in part as far back as 2008. Before we go deeper into the how we reforest Montgomery and our programs, we'll first ask the question, why is it important to grow and protect our tree canopy? Our forests and trees improve the livability and attractiveness of the county in environmental, social, and economic ways. Forests and even individual trees provide a range of benefits to the environment. They increase biodiversity by providing habitat for birds and other pollinators. For example, the Quercus genus, or oak trees, host 532 species of butterflies and moths in the mid-Atlantic region. Many of these species choose the white oak, Maryland state tree, as their host to live and for food. Our forests mitigate climate change by sequestering carbon dioxide. All told, the trees we have already planted through our programs, about 14,000 trees, will sequester 154 tons of carbon dioxide when they reach maturity. This amount of carbon emissions sequestered is equivalent to 36 gas-powered vehicles driven for 1 year, or about 12 million smartphones charged. And trees also effectively filter pollutants in both the air and our water, and they help to reduce flooding by managing water flow. A mature river birch, for example, can remove up to 1 pound of particulate matter from the atmosphere, which improves air quality and improves health outcomes. Further, our forests absorb thousands of gallons of stormwater every year, which can improve water quality. They also serve as erosion control, which protects our stream valley buffers. Individual trees we plant provide direct benefits to the people who live among them. They cool the surrounding areas through shading and evapotranspiration, which is the release of cool water from their leaves that turns into vapor. This helps to limit urban heat islands, reduce heat-related illnesses, and reduce home energy needs. They can also directly increase home and commercial property values through slowing car traffic and increasing pedestrian traffic. Finally, spending time among trees, especially in forests, has been shown to reduce stress and improve your mood. And of course, trees are beautiful. You only need to look at redbuds blooming near Wheaton headquarters to see this. So this brings me to the how we reforest Montgomery. There are 3 reforestation programs, and these really highlight also the ways that we engage our programs through trees and forests. Our first reforestation program is our parks program, and the photo on the right is a demonstration of this. This is Watts Branch between 2008 and 2020, and it was one of our first park reforestation programs. Next, in our easement reforestation program, we reforest older easements that were established but never required to plant, or naturally lost trees through natural pressures. Through these programs, we can bolster our community engagement by working directly with property owners and HOAs to enhance their easements. We also are excited to begin a partnership with MCPS to reforest easements on school properties. Finally, we have the Relief the Reserve program, which reforests land in the Ag Reserve through our partnership with Montgomery Countryside Alliance. We plant on areas of farmland that are not suitable for farming, but are environmentally sensitive areas. On all of our planting plans, we plant either 200 trees per acre at 1 to 1.5 inch caliper, or 100 trees at 1.5 to 2 inch caliper, and focus on increasing biodiversity in the forest. All the trees that we plant through Reforest Montgomery are native or near native and resilient to climate change in compliance with the tree's technical manual. Right now, we're in the midst of our spring planting program, which will add an additional 4.68 acres of planting. And by the planning board meeting next week, we will have planted an additional 294 trees and 41 shrubs. But these are not the only ways that we are protecting and planting forest in the county. Developers also plant on-site in forest conservation easements for forest mitigation, or they buy credits from existing and planted forest banks. The bank program further protects forests and plants trees in easements. And with that, I will turn it over to Mia Rothberg.
Thanks, Kelsey. I'm Mia Rothberg, Forest Conservation Planner 2. I'll talk about our 4 tree planting programs today. Our first and most popular program is our free shade tree program. Through this, we plant about 60 to 80 trees each fall and spring in priority funding areas of the county identified by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. These cover most of the suburban and urban portions of the county that have the least tree canopy. As I mentioned, this program is quite popular, so each season we receive 100 to 200 applications and are only able to accept about 20 to 30. We select these applications through a lottery to ensure fairness and give preference to properties in our equity areas. And through this program, we assist property owners in selecting trees for their yard and coordinate contractors to plant them. You can see 2 of these trees right here. They tend to be about 8 to 10 feet tall at planting, and we stake them and cage them in order to give them the best chance at survival. Our second program, and our newest, is a partnership with MCPS that we launched in fall 2023. Since then, we've planted 38 trees at 4 elementary schools in the Down County area, and we prioritize equity through this program as well, prioritizing Title I schools, schools that were recently Title I, schools in our equity areas, or those that are otherwise in need of trees. For example, we recently planted 6 or 7 trees at Sligo Creek Elementary School, which is right in the Purple Line construction area. So it's lost a lot of trees nearby due to that construction, and we are excited to be able to replace some of them. Our third program is a second partnership with Montgomery Parks. Through this, we transplant large caliper trees from Montgomery Park's Pope Farm to local parks, and these are trees that are roughly 4 to 7 inches in diameter and are too big for park staff to move with the equipment they have, so we fund a contractor to move them with a specialized truck. These sites that we plant at are all selected by parks naturalists as a way to supplement the robust tree planting program they already have, and through this program, we're transplanting about 40 to 50 trees a year. Our final and most flexible program is our tree coupon program. Through this, any resident of the county can purchase as many trees as they want at any time for $50 off from one of 6 participating local nurseries. So this is a great way for people who were either unable to get trees through our free tree program, people who don't qualify through our free tree program, or people who want trees more quickly to get trees right when they want to at any time. And through this program, we've reimbursed over 4,000 coupons since 2020. So for each of our programs, Kelsey and I are continuously meeting with property owners and our partners who are receiving trees, making sure that we're putting the right tree in the right place and that the people are prepared to steward the trees to maturity. But in addition, we're always working to promote our programs and tree planting in general with other members of the community. In a couple weeks, our team and some of the environmental planners from across the department will be tabling at Greenfest in the plaza. We'll be bringing a model of watersheds to teach about the importance of them and also bring activities about tree canopy and other information on the work the department is doing to promote our programs. We're also proud to have recently installed a sign at Tacoma Park Elementary School, which received 12 of our free trees a couple years ago. This sign is about the benefits of trees and is targeted at 5 to 7-year-old students. And it's printed in English and Spanish. And it also has a QR code in the bottom left, the sign's that right that you can see. The QR code allows people to scan it and access the 6 other languages most commonly spoken by Montgomery County families. And our communications division did great work designing this and getting it translated for us. Each quarter, we also send an e-letter in English and Spanish about Reforest Montgomery, like upcoming application periods, program milestones, and a column on non-native invasive management. This e-letter currently reaches over 1,000 residents. Throughout the summer, we also send weekly email watering alerts with information on the best way to water trees and reminders to actually water them when it's especially hot or dry. These are a supplement to our tree care and tree selection resources webpage that has more information on the benefits of trees, proper tree planting and care, and different species of trees that do well in the county. These are all resources that anyone can take advantage of, regardless of whether or not they've participated in one of our programs. Finally, in order to help Reforest Montgomery reach new audiences, we're constantly working with our communications team during open application periods for our free shade trees to advertise on Nextdoor in areas with low tree canopy where we haven't previously received applications. We also recorded an interview in English and Spanish with a reporter from the radio station El Sol 107.9 a couple years ago promoting Reforest Montgomery as well as the general benefits of trees that they air for us each year during our open application periods. Now I'll pass it off to Reagan. Reagan is an intern who's been working with us since November, and she's currently a planning student at GW. Most of her work is focused on behind-the-scenes GIS work for us, but I'll let her talk a little bit about our mapping.
Hello, like Mia said, my name is Reagan Ogburn, Forest Conservation Intern 2. So this is a map of our Reforest Montgomery programs and forest banks. The forest banks, which are protected lands, are the orange polygons, and then our reforestation programs are shown as the yellow, green, and red polygons. Our tree planting programs are the pink circles and purple diamonds. We decided to leave our tree coupon program off of this map because with over 4,000 points, it covers most of the entire county and makes it harder to see the other programs. But you can see in this map that most of our reforestation projects are occurring in the rural parts of the county, and we use our tree planting programs to fill in the gaps in the more urban areas. This is a version of, there is a version of this map on our website where we have aggregated the free shade trees to protect the privacy of residents, and it is a great way for people to be able to see our work. And overall, we are very proud to be planting trees throughout the whole county.
So thank you. We'll open it up to questions if you guys have questions for the team. I did want to just say, I mean, it's just so impressive. Somehow we lost. It's such an impressive program, and we're really proud of it at the department and the work that they have done on this. And I mean, you said 14,000 trees, and that's over the 5-year period total. It was really impressive. I was curious though, just getting to the kind of the maintenance question a little bit, is you know, the free trees that we provide for private properties, or do we give guidance to the owners? And I know we talked about how they're staked. Do we give guidance to them in terms of how to maintain them and when to remove the stakes? And then similarly for others, you know, how do we, you know, the trees that we plant in parks and in other public lands, you know, how are they maintained, or, you know, how is it determined? How often do we go back? Do we like remove the stakes? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, thanks. So I can answer that. For our reforestation programs, for all of them, we have them on a 2- and 5-year maintenance schedule where we are encumbering the funds from the moment the project starts to have a contractors going out there doing invasive treatment, removing cages eventually, although that tends to take almost a decade. We also include money for watering, which is especially important these days. And so for those trees, we also hold ourselves to survivability requirements based on the ratio that the trees were planted at initially. And if we don't meet those requirements, we plant it back up to ensure that we're actually meeting our definition of forest. For our free tree program, those trees we don't provide individual follow-up maintenance. We just don't have the manpower or funding for that. But we do provide property owners with watering information. We sign them up for our watering alerts. They sometimes receive either watering bags or other supplemental watering tools, and we do provide them information on deer protection, when to remove the stakes, and all of that. And of course, they always have my email. I'm constantly getting phone calls and emails from people who have received trees even a few years ago asking me questions on proper care and follow-up.
So how the free tree and also the $50 coupon works? Is it everybody can qualify for that? And do we really have enough funding? The $50, I do not know if something that is paid from our budget, or is it some kind of agreement with the nurseries that we're sending people there? How does it work? I didn't know about that. That's very new for me.
Yeah, so all of our programs are funded by the Forest Conservation Fund. So that's one of the special revenue funds that the department has. It's not money coming from the council. It's all money coming in directly to us, paid by developers. So this fund started in the early 1990s when it was established by the Maryland Forest Conservation Act, and our duty is to spend down the money received through these programs. For the coupon program, we have no limits on it. We've never maxed out the amount we've planned for in our budget each year, but that is money. So the people get $50 off when they buy the tree, and then the nurseries mail us the coupon and the receipt as evidence, and we send the nursery $50 per coupon that they mail us. So it's a way to encourage people to get a discount, but the nurseries aren't incurring any costs. For our free trees, we do limit ourselves because our main goal is reforestation. So for our free trees, the reason we're so limited, despite the popularity of the program, is we try to spend under $25,000 each season on those trees to make sure that we're focusing the majority of our funding on our reforestation
And the
programs.
information people apply is on your website?
Yes, yeah, so applications for that are on our website, yep.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment. I love the program. I love trees. I'm an outdoors guy. I grew up in Southern California, and we didn't have the ability to grow trees like you all do here. The one question I do have is, I saw this idea from another plan with regards to community gardens and having fruiting trees. And I was wondering if the program installs or sells fruiting trees, like apple trees, peach trees, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so our coupon program is really the broadest selection of trees that are available. People can select from over 50 different species, and we do include a few different native fruiting trees on there, including persimmons and pawpaws. We do also plant those in reforestation contexts. If you're out and about, you do actually see pawpaws fairly commonly in the area in local forests. So those we are planting.
What is a pawpaw?
Yeah, a pawpaw it's the largest fruit native to North America. If people are trying to advertise it, they'll tell you it's sort of a cross between a pineapple, a coconut, and a banana. I disagree with that. It doesn't taste that good, and it doesn't travel well, which is why you don't see it in the market. But each year it is quite common. You'll see articles in local news, the local news encouraging you to learn to forage for pawpaws.
And next time I come to the board, I will wear my pawpaw earrings because I have them, so you'll know what they look like.
But thank you, Commissioner, for asking the question for those of us who also had no idea what a pawpaw was.
Well, and if I could tie into the next item on your agenda, we'll talk about the legislative updates, and you'll see that we will now have the ability to take you all on tours of our master plan areas together, and maybe the next time we're out on a tour, if we see a pawpaw tree, we'll be sure to point that out to you.
Identify the pawpaw tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sort of agree, they're fine. They're okay. I have a friend that's really into them. I've had to eat them before multiple times. They're fine.
It's an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste. One wonders why you would go to the trouble of acquiring it, but yes. I know. I'll bring one for. I'll get Charlene to get me one. So as you talked a little bit about native and near native, as sort of, I know you've only been doing it for 5 years with reforestation, but however you do you have plans going forward for adjusting to climate change as sort of like the agricultural, they're moving over time, and are we seeing different survivability statistics for different types of trees? Are we sort of planning ahead for that? What's our sort of stance in there?
Yes, for sure. So to start with, we do sort of keep track of the trees that are existing in the county and how they're doing. For example, red maples are native and still do well, but we don't plant those because Parks did a survey and found that they're extremely overrepresented in parks. Okay. So to promote diversity, we're not planting them. Another tree that we're looking at often is white pines. In parks, a lot of times you'll hear about white pines that are on the decline. They're struggling to survive in this environment because it's just too warm. Yeah. So when we say near native, a lot of times what we're looking at is trees that are native to Virginia or just a little bit farther south of here to take into account that climate change. So for example, we recently started planting loblolly pines, which are native to Virginia and to do much better in warmer areas. So yeah, we're constantly taking into account the climate change and various diseases that are impacting trees and being aware of those.
Okay, and that sort of brings up another question I had as well, of sort of with the coupon, you can sort of buy whatever you want of the styles, but when we're doing the reforestation and sort of like the canopy trees and sort of the scrub, how do you sort of manage planting those to sort of make the reforestation work when you're planting like larger versus sort of the edge trees kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So generally speaking, we follow guidelines for diversity. So I mentioned we try to promote biodiversity, so we'll plant 10% of a species, 20% of a genus, and 30% of a family, so so that you get diversity that way. That's and then awesome. when I'm thinking about my planting plans, I'll try to offer selection of trees that our contractor can pick from to plant. Many of the in my mind, I have smaller trees that I consider medium-sized, large canopy trees, so I'll try to offer a mix of that too. So, and especially I'll have flowering and fruiting trees near the edge of the planting, so someone that might walk through the easement might enjoy a pawpaw or serviceberry or some other fruit or flower. And then
Serviceberry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we love serviceberries. That did not come up, but that's one of my favorite fruiting trees. There are some outside. Again, next time I come here, we'll bring serviceberries. Anyway, so we try to plant in our planting plans canopy trees towards the center and towards the edge of the forest, and then the small fruiting trees by where people might be.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. I know we probably need to move on. I just had one question. In addition to just saying that this is it's really awesome to learn more about this program in particular, because I think it's such an example of like all the benefits you described, but also the huge bang for the buck that certain parts of the planning department and the parks department, for colleagues over there, like the services we provide to the community, that's not often sort of seen front and center. But this is such a great example of that. So thanks to your whole team. It's really awesome. My mind immediately goes toward our master plans. And you gave the example of kind of thinking about cooling some of our corridors as part of our corridor planning efforts. And we're going through the university corridor plan right now. And I'm just curious if we've had conversations about, leveraging this program to the extent we can to sort of to have maybe targeted programs if and when master planning efforts come through and then get implemented. And there's, we talk a lot about, obviously the cooling the corridors effort is the, something that we heard about today, but we've talked a lot about kind of street trees and the environment that the way that they enhance the streetscape. And improve walkability or improve just the pedestrian experience, but also improve the public health outcomes for folks living on those corridors through filtering the particulate matter and other things like that. And it does seem like it's given how long master plans often take to sort of build out over time and for residents to see the full benefits, the street trees potentially it seems like something that maybe could be realized or at least implemented more in the short term, so residents could see some of the benefits associated with that. Obviously, it's a huge cost, and trees take a long time to grow. But I'm just wondering if have those conversations happened about we have targeted areas of the county. It sounds like priority funding areas and other equity areas where we're trying to target already. But can master plan areas also potentially be targeted areas or priority areas if and when they get implemented through this program or leveraging this program?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have in the past worked a little bit with our master plan teams as they develop recommendations and have also worked with them to promote our programs, but we haven't done anything as concrete as you talked about. I think that's one thing we're sort of excited about with the upcoming restructure for the department. We're going to be in the new environment division, and we'll be working much more closely with the master planners who are doing work similar to us. So we'll be able to implement things more like that.
Great. This is wonderful presentations. First, I'd like to say thank you to the Planning and Parks Department on the recent approval of the Bethesda Downtown Minor Master Plan Amendment. That was wonderful. It'll be so beneficial to the county moving forward. And on the Reforest Montgomery, thank you. You could see we could talk about this all day. And so wonderful presentation. I love that you're focusing a lot on the equity areas, as a priority. That's so important. I love all the diagrams, and I know in my community, once on the listservs when they talk about this, and also once you see a couple of neighbors get trees, they all want them, to figure. And I loved all the questions that the board members had. So thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful presentation.
I still have more. So
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I did want to thank Kelsey and Mia and Reagan for joining me today and really highlighting not just how impressive the program is, but you get to see a little bit more of the detailed work that goes into it. It's not just planting a tree. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and you can see how well they maintain the program. All right. So just a couple of other quick things. I wanted to also mention that our communications division has produced a handful of new videos for our website and our YouTube channel. Ben Kraft from our research team has been interviewed about his latest third-place blog. Ben analyzed some recent redevelopment projects in Montgomery County and their effect on resident displacement. Ben makes the case that that development has not driven displacement in Montgomery County. Atara Margulies from our Down County team provides some updates on the Friendship Heights sector plan and the approach that her team is taking to reimagine the future of that area with the community. The plan team has several community meetings planned for next month. And the Eastern Silver Spring Communities Plan has a new video as well. It's about how our planners have been hearing, what our planners have been hearing from the community so far. And project lead Lauren Stam talks about the community's desire for more parks in the area, better entertainment options, and more amenities. As Lauren and Atara explain in these videos, the community visioning phase is a huge part of the planning process. It sets the stage for us to develop our recommendations that truly reflect what the area wants and what the area needs. And these videos help the public understand the process and the work that we are putting into their communities. And then finally,
Jason,
yes.
that the false choice between redevelopment and displacement in Montgomery County is a wonderful topic. I haven't seen the video, but I think this is something that needs, not that anyway say the other ones, it comes in front of us anyway, but something like that, I think it would be good to make it more public by having a presentation, maybe in one of your, report or something by itself, that everyone that tune in on Thursday morning, they see that also. I think it has, I haven't seen the video to see what it is, but it sounds really good to share it more with public than having it on the third plot.
Well, first, I would say I'm honored that you think so many people are tuning in, and I appreciate that. I hope that a lot of people are tuning in for my director's report, but we can have Ben come in. And I will say it's actually, the blog post has been picked up by a number of media outlets and pushed out by a number of people on social media. So we've been quite impressed with the amount of the reach that the blog post has gotten. And then this video is new. So we'll be sure to even share with the board the link to the video. And maybe we can even put it in one of my weekly messages. So
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea because there are a lot of myth and false and disinformation out there. When we have some facts, because Ben is saying, I'm thinking that this is supported with facts and data. Yeah. When we have facts and data, these kind of things are really good to share it more, provide more venues for people to see it.
Thank you. And finally, just some quick personnel updates. I'm happy to share that Kristen Toddy is returning to work for the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division in a temporary contract position. Kristen had previously been with IRC full-time and did an outstanding job working to build the Reforest Montgomery program and strengthen Montgomery County's forest conservation law. With her return to us, she'll be helping IRC rewrite the trees technical manual, which has not been updated since 1992. And the Office of the General Counsel here at Wheaton headquarters has a new legal assistant. Brittany White is a graduate of the University of Maryland and previously worked in the DC Office of Administrative Hearings, the DC Office of Employment Services, and the U.S. International Trade Commission. And so we welcome Brittany to our team. That I'm done.
Okay. Thank you so much. Always wonderful director's report. Thank you, Mr. Sartori. So we're going to take a 2-minute break and start on our next item, which is legislative update by our General Counsel, Deborah Borden. Thank you. Good morning. We're on item number 7, legislative update, and this morning we have Ms. Jordan Balcom-Colbert to present on 2 legislative bills that were passed or were considered. So, and also we have our General Counsel, Deborah Borden, presenting too. So thank you, and we welcome and look forward to hearing what you have to say now that the legislative season has ended.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the members of the Planning Board. I'm Deborah Borden, for the record, General Counsel for the Commission. Yes, so we have an update on 2 bills that were of great concern this session. So we were following the Housing for Jobs Act. That was an initiative led by the governor's administration, specifically the Department of Housing and Community Development. So that bill went through a very significant set of amendments. The amended version came out about a week before the end of the session. It included a task force to look at this idea of collecting data based on the ratio of jobs to housing. And it also required a study, a very general sort of study of land use, permitting, construction, the types of things that impact our ability to provide more affordable housing in the state. So those were the 2 bookends. And then in the middle of the amended bill, there was a provision to alter the vesting requirement for development projects in the state. And that was the thing that was very controversial. And with only a week left in the General Assembly session, there just wasn't enough time to work through that piece of the bill. It was quite a change from what we have. Just so you know, in legal parlance, the state of Maryland is a late vesting state, which means that right up until you pull building permits and get substantial start to your construction, so footers in the ground, you have to start digging, basically. Your zoning is not vested in your project. So technically you could have a change in zoning that could impact what you're building right up until you start building it. That is a quirk of Maryland law. It's been that way for many years, for decades. There's plenty of case law on it. And this bill, that we literally just got the week before the session, was proposing to change that, at least for residential projects. And so they just ran out of time, I think. And so the bill did not pass. No version of the bill passed. We may see another run at that next year. Who knows what it'll look like, but we'll be on the lookout for that. The other bill that I wanted to mention did pass. So I'm going to put my little cheat sheet up on the screen. The bill that did pass is the solar bill. And this is basically 38 pages of very technical, complex legislation. And let me just say, it was a compromise bill, obviously. It was a middle of the road approach between the county's wish list, which they worked out before the session, the industry's wish list, which was really represented by the bill that was introduced, and then the bill that was actually passed, which is a compromise between the 2 extremes, I would say. So just to hit the highlights and to let you know, we are still working through what's in this bill. It is very complex, and we'll be looking through it to understand what changes we need to make to our process, and maybe changes that we need to make to our zoning ordinances in both counties. We'll be working with your land use teams to deal with that in the next couple of months. The bill is effective on July 1 of this year. So we have a couple months to deal with that so that we can be ready to roll on July 1. But just to let you know what's in the bill, first and foremost, the tax exemption is gone. So that was really producing, I think, a lot of heartburn in all of the counties, that the solar companies could be exempt from local property taxes, local personal taxes. And so that tax exemption is bye-bye, so there is no tax exemption for this use anymore. So the way that this is set up, generally, it is set up based on the megawatts that the solar generating station produces. And so you have a generating station. If I start in the sort of the middle of my chart, the generating stations that are up to 2 megawatts, those are going to go to the local governments to approve. Those are not going to have to go to the PSC. So you're going to have local government approval. You're going to have site plan approval. They still have to get stormwater approval, erosion sediment control, building permits, all of that local permitting still in place, still has to be approved. However, the local governments are prohibited from making the use itself prohibited in any way. They are not allowed to send the use through a special exception of any kind, special exception or conditional use process. And the local governments are not allowed to send them through a floating zone process. And that is true across the board. That's true whether it's less than 2 megawatts, more than 5 megawatts, any megawatts. No special exception, no floating zone. You still get to do a site plan, but if it's under 5 megawatts, anything under 5 megawatts has to be sent through an administrative site plan procedure. They have pointed us to an administrative procedure in the land use article that's in the first part of the land use article, so it's not in our section, but what it's describing is an administrative approval process where it goes to the planning board, where it goes to the planning director for approval after it's received staff review. So that's the compromise. The local governments get to keep their site plan authority, but they have to do it quicker. They have to do it fast, and they can't do special exception. They can't do any of those other much more complex and layered processes. And so local government has up until 2 megawatts, between 2 and 5 megawatts. The PSC has been directed to create an expedited process for those. So it's a CPCN process light. And so they've described that for the PSC. But for our purposes, we still get to do an administrative site plan. All of the other permits are still required. But we can't do special exception, we can't do floating zone, and we can't do a hearing, basically, up to 5 megawatts. So after 5 megawatts, you still have to do, you can still do a site plan, but you can do an expanded site plan where you actually go to a hearing, but it still has to be somehow expedited. You can't, it can't take years to do your site plan, for instance. So the other requirements, you're going to have 5 megawatts are going to be prohibited in the tier 1 or tier 2 growth area. So that's going to be, your high density areas. Medium or high density residential, again, you're not going to be able to do a 5 megawatt or more than 5 megawatt generating station, and anything with mixed use that has a residential component is not going to be available for higher than 5 megawatt generating station. The other thing that was of really great importance, but particularly in Montgomery County, but also in other counties, they have included a cap on the number of solar generating stations that can be in your priority preservation area. So that's going to be your ag reserve. And they've capped it at 5% of the total acreage of that PPA. So we're going to have to track that. And we're going to have to then report to the PSC when we reach the 5%. Now, there is a little question, at least in my mind, as to whether that 5% becomes a hard no, or whether it's up to the counties to determine whether that's a no. In other words, beyond the 5%, whether they could, if they wanted to, allow additional generating stations beyond that 5%, whether that's within the county's discretion or not. That's a question that I have that we're going to have to get answered.
Okay. I was going to ask the same question, Deborah.
Oh,
Ms. Borden, sorry, can I ask one question on the 5%, just to make sure I understand? Well, I guess a couple of things. So I assume that, you know, the ag reserve would be a form of a priority preservation area. Is that's
correct.
counts as definition. So do we know if the 5% is calculated on a per parcel basis, or is it looking at the entirety of the ag reserve and calculating it based on the acreage that's included in that ag reserve, or is it more like actually protected? You know, it has to be zoned that way, and it has to have kind of, you know, whatever other easements are in place.
Well, the way that it's written, it is the total 5% of the PPA, of the entire ag reserve. It is not a parcel by parcel 5%. And from what we understand, the easements, if you have easements that specifically prohibit a solar generating station, then that easement is still in effect. It's not void because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So, easements that are in place that may be written differently, parcel by parcel, this is not intended to impact whatever the easement says.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, I think that, you know, so in other words, a county. So in our case, the county could, you know, approve in the ag reserve projects up until it reaches a 5% of the ag reserve threshold. I think that, you know, I was a little bit worried at first that it would sort of constrain on a site-by-site basis, which would make projects a little bit less feasible. But it's nice to hear that it's sort of it's looking at the entirety and kind of the threshold for the entire priority preservation area as a whole. So I think that's a good approach.
Yeah. If I may ask just a clarifying question real quick. For one, so you're basically saying that previously adopted site plans for solar are still in effect for their, for their easements, their requirements, all that kind of thing. This is not retroactive. And then
that's correct, and that's true for anyone also who's been through the PSC process. You know, their CPCN processes. Anything that started before July 1, 2025 is under the old system, whatever that is.
Excuse me. For the other question I had, what other priority preservation areas do we have in Montgomery County? We have one around one of the stream systems, don't we? Do we have other PPAs within that qualify for this? I'm just curious. I don't think it would practically affect anything, but I'm curious.
I don't think I think it's the ag reserve.
It's just the ag reserve. None of the watershed protection areas or anything like that would qualify under the PPA.
I don't think so. I'm looking back. No.
Okay. No. All right. I was curious for that. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
But that raises a good point. It has been suggested that counties review their PPAs, and if they need adjustment, enlargement, this is the time to do it, because you'd want to do it before the effective date of this law. So it's a good exercise, to take a look at your PPAs and see if they do need to be adjusted.
So Deborah, I have a question. So still are requirements that county had for solar, for ag reserve still is in place. Those are not overridden.
The requirements for the ag reserve.
Yeah, we had some requirements for solar placement in ag reserve.
Yes, I think she's saying, does this trumps the county's current zoning ordinance on solar?
Yeah.
But that was already
I understand. But
preempted by the PSC.
Right.
Under the law as it previously existed.
Correct.
Yeah, but still,
Right.
we could deny it if it is like the type of the soil that is good for agriculture. We could still deny it based on that.
I think only under 2 megawatts. If it was over 2, is that
Yes.
correct? It would already go to the PS.
I
It would already go to the
understand.
state.
The ones that comes to us to review, still the requirements for solar, for ag-reserve is in place, correct?
Well, can I jump in just a bit? So there are what we would consider standard or development standards in the bill, and then there's a reference to the need for the PSC to adopt regulations, sort of adding to those regulations, adding to the siting standards. So, but the way the bill is set up, if the applicant meets the siting standards, regardless of where it is, whether it's in the PPA, whether it's, more than 5 megawatts, whether it's less, if they meet the siting standards that are either in the PSC's regulations or in this code, in these provisions, then we have to approve it.
So Oh, sorry, I was just going to clarify. So essentially, this removes the tier 1, tier 2 soil concern that we've had before for the thing. Okay, that's good.
Yes, unless that appears
Right,
or that
if
comes
it's in
back
the
in the form
regulations,
of the PSC's regulations.
Sorry, yeah, turned myself off. So unless the state publishes regulations to that thing, we can't deny it based on tier 1 or tier 2 soils.
That's correct.
Good.
That means that if someone wants to put solar on a kind of soil that is good for agriculture, we cannot deny.
Not unless they're not meeting one of these other requirements that are in the bill, the siting standards, the setbacks, the fencing, the development standards that we are used to dealing with. If they don't meet that, then they can be denied. But if they're meeting all of those standards, and none of those standards currently contain the soil quality. But again, there's at least a possibility that may come in through the regulation process that the PSC must go through, but there's no guarantee that will come in.
Ms. Borden, this is Jason Sartori. I just want to verify that everything you're saying is now would apply to the 1 megawatts and above, right? So below 1 megawatt in our zoning and our standards would still apply.
Well, let's see.
And
I'm going to have to check on that
Okay.
because there's a specific section, it's called Section F, that has all of the standards. And so, you have to sort of keep going back and forth in this bill to see which type of generating station gets Section F and which doesn't. So agrivoltaics, for instance, does not have siting standards because they're exempt from Section F. So if you are growing crops under the solar panels, actual crops, if you are allowing livestock to graze, then the siting standards don't apply. But they have removed apiaries, so beekeeping, and they've removed pollinators. So if all you're doing is growing pollinators, you don't get the agrivoltaics exemption from the siting standards.
So if I could, I think then what we're seeing though there's a lot that we still need to digest with this, and
yes,
it does take effect, I think, on July 1st. And so we will be, I can tell you that planning staff will be working with council staff to see, what implication this has to our zoning code and whether we need to make some changes to be more consistent with the new state code too.
Interpret probably.
So, we need to continue, move on, but yes, we have some time. We need between now and July to really figure out how does it apply to our current code zoning standards? What are they going to amend their standards, and how does all fits into the picture? But
I just wanted to also ask, in terms of the PSC issuing, publishing regulations on this, I can't imagine that they would have the time to do that before July 1st, and so, or maybe they will. But do we have a sense for how long the regulation drafting process and then publishing might take, knowing that could have some implications on citing standards and therefore conversations we have here in the county?
Well, there is actually a two-step process. The standards are actually going to be developed by a different committee or commission. If I could find what it's called. And then they're gonna come up with the actual regulations. They're gonna present them to the PSC, and the PSC is going to then do the final approval on them. So if I could just find it. Yeah, they're actually going to create a separate entity, a separate sort of committee to develop the standards or the regulations.
Yes, so, yeah, while you're looking at that, I highly doubt that they can get this done in 2 months. So projects are going to be somewhat in limbo, but I think it's really important for us, as Director Sartori said, go through it, meet with council, and figure out, where we all are on this from a.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it has any kind of public process, if it is a dire impact to our ag reserve requirement, and, how they could take into account all the work that was previously done on this with people and with public.
Well, the adoption of regulations by a state agency does have a notice and comment period under the state APA, so there will be an opportunity for people to weigh in on the regulations that the Public Service Commission might end up proposing. I can tell you that much.
Okay, that's good to hear. So there is going to be a place for people to make comments.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So,
And in addition, the PSC is going to have to do, of course, a study, particularly on community solar and this notion of automatic enrollment in community solar. So there's another study component that's part of the bill as well. So they'll be dealing with regulations. They've got to do a study, and then there's several points where they need to report out. So there's going to be a fair bit of back and forth and lots of opportunity, I think, to comment on various stages of this work over the next year or 2 years.
Great. Thank you so much. This is very informative. You can see all the interest up here on solar and how it, not only, the need for it, but how it would affect our county. So anything else for us, Ms. Borden?
No, that's all I have.
Okay.
And we will have our full report on the entire General Assembly session at your May full commission meeting. So save up your questions and we'll make sure that we have answers for you.
Yeah, great. And as Director Sartori said, another major positive outcome out of this is our getting the Open Meetings Act approved. So we really appreciate everyone's hard work on including Delegate Polakovich-Carr in sponsoring this to get that approved. So thank you. All right,
Absolutely.
we're gonna
Thank you.
take just a 1-minute break, and we're going to switch immediately over to item number 5, Montgomery Cultural Planning Briefing, where staff is recommending to brief the board. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're on item number 5, Montgomery Cultural Plan Briefing. And this morning, we have Mr. Atul Sharma and a team to present this item. We're looking forward to hearing about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Planning Board. For the record, I'm Atul Sharma with the Director's Office, and I'm joined here today with our esteemed colleagues from the Arts and Humanities Council, as well as their wonderful consultant team. Some of us are online, some of us are here in person. I'm going to turn it to CEO Susan Jenkins in a minute to introduce the team and set up the presentation, but I just wanted to take a moment here to say a couple of things for context. And since these are cultural matters, I will reference an English Enlightenment era poet, Alexander Pope, who said, "To plan is human, to implement divine." So this is about implementation. We'll get a legal second opinion on that. But I think today really does mark a great step forward in implementing a key action that was conceived in collaboration with the Arts and Humanities Council when the Planning Department was putting forth the recommendations in Thrive Montgomery 2050, which for the Planning Department is our guiding document. And I'll read directly what the overall goal for doing this was per Thrive. It was to support the arts and cultural institutions and programming to educate, connect, and build communities that celebrate our diversity and strengthen pride of place. One of the key actions that emerged from the writing of this chapter was to update the county's cultural plan. And as Susan reminded me this morning, this has been 5 years in the making now. And as you will hear from the Arts and Humanities Commission and the consultants, they've done an incredible amount of work to get us to this stage. Having said that, we are still just in the beginning parts of the process to update the cultural plan. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susan to introduce her team and then have the consultants who are online walk us through the presentation. And we welcome the board's high-level questions, feedback, and look forward to the discussion. So, Susan.
Thank you, Atul, and good morning. I'm Susan Jenkins, and I'm the CEO of the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here presenting to you today. Thank you, Chair Harris and Commissioners, and Jason Sartori, the Director, for inviting us, and Atul for making this happen for us. As Atul mentioned, when we first began our conversation about Thrive 2050 with Atul, our concern was making sure that we came up with a comprehensive way to look at the intersectionality of arts and culture in Montgomery County, one of the most multicultural and multi-generational areas in the entire region. And so as we thought about doing that, we knew that we had to do some preliminary research, and that preliminary research has taken us about 3 years. And we've done that with the help of many consultants, one of whom is online today, and that's Mr. Todd Bressi. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Bressi as someone who has guided our work and helped support us as we talked about working with the Planning Board on this cultural plan. Then we also began to look for consultants who would support us, and my Deputy Director, Joe Frandoni, is here and has led this project and the search for a firm that would help us develop a cultural plan that would meet the needs of this area. And that came in the form of Miss Ann Gadwa Nicodemus, who is the Chief Muckety-Muck of Metris. And part of her team includes Miss May Amayao, who is also here with us today, and they are going to take us through the work that we've been doing together with you to come up with the work that needs to be done to develop a new cultural plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ann Gadwa Nicodemus, and I thank you again for having us today. It is an absolute honor.
Good morning, Chair Harris and Commissioners Pedoeem, Hedrick, Bartley, and Linden. It's great to be with you. And thank you for the opportunity to formally brief Montgomery County Planning MNC-PPC on the Montgomery County Cultural Plan. I'm Ann Gadwin-Nicodemus, the muckety-muck of Metris Arts Consulting, a research and planning consultancy dedicated to improving and measuring cultural vitality. And it's my privilege to serve as the consultant lead for the Montgomery County Cultural Plan. So Metris is stewarding the Montgomery County's new cultural plan for the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County, AHCMC, and its collaborators in Montgomery County government, including specifically MNC-PPC. So let's pause. Cultural planning, what is it all about? Well, we really like this definition from researcher Tom Borup. Cultural planning is the practice of creating place-based plans that identify priorities, guide investment, and inform local policies concerning arts and culture. So in the general sense, cultural plans help guide a locality, in this case Montgomery County, and how it should spend public and private dollars, develop facilities, establish or change regulations, use public spaces and government buildings, promote economic development and tourism, support educational or artistic programs, or make other decisions that affect arts and culture in the county. The framing question guiding this cultural planning process, our North Star, so to speak, is how can Montgomery County help its residents lead culturally rich lives and best support community-backed priorities through arts, culture, and the humanities? And Montgomery County has already made great strides in identifying community-backed values and priorities for this cultural planning effort, namely belonging, cultural resilience, and intersectionality. These values are based on AHCMC's leadership and community research efforts 2.5 years in the making. For instance, the Cultural Asset Mapping Project, completed in 2022, found that many Montgomery County residents participate in arts and culture in non-traditional venues and often do not associate traditional venues like art galleries and theaters with their own creative expression. The lived experience of creativity and culture within the county is rooted in culture, takes place closer to home, and focuses on the development of connections with others in the community. And we're so pleased that Civic Arts' Lynn Osgood, who led the Cultural Asset Mapping Project, is on the cultural planning team, offering continuity and making sure that its insights are held closely throughout the planning process. In reflective conversations on arts and culture completed in 2022 by MJR Partners, they established a working definition of arts and culture with perspectives and stories from Montgomery County residents. And this definition formed a basis for AHCMC's future cultural planning and communications about the arts and cultural sphere. And Todd Bressie, his 2024 Setting the Stage emphasized exploring intersections with various county resources, departments, and policies to create a network of support for the cultural life of residents. And just as an aside, I can't tell you how impressed the Metris team was with the depth and the thoughtfulness of AHCMC's groundwork research. I approach this work as both an urban planner who also has lived experience in the arts. I'm an ex-choreographer and arts administrator turned urban planner. And over my career as both a consultant and an author, I've had the honor to be a leading national voice exploring how arts and culture can be an essential tool for community vitality and well-being. And Metris is very selective about the cultural planning projects it pursues. But this was just such a fantastic opportunity to combine Metris's national prominence in creative community development and cultural policy with AHCMC's deeply rooted local leadership. So building on this work, our cultural plan, research, and community engagement will explore these domains: belonging, creating a community where everyone belongs and can lead culturally rich lives. And when we talk about belonging, we draw inspiration from the City of Oakland's cultural plan. We were so fortunate to have Roberta Bedoya featured here, who led the work for the city as our keynote speaker for the public launch of the cultural plan. And here's their understanding. People's sense of belonging is tied to their ability to lead meaningful lives, to be connected to the place they live in and the people they live among, and to feel a part of something larger than themselves. So for belonging, our key research questions are: how can arts, culture, and humanities investments and policies respond to Montgomery's rapid and diverse population growth, expand access to arts and cultural resources for all residents, and advance racial equity? Cultural resilience, or helping our artists and cultural communities thrive. For this value, our key research questions are: how can the county best support the core arts, culture, and humanities sector to strengthen capacity and address gaps, and help it respond effectively to the continued impacts of the pandemic and economic and political instability? Intersectionality. By this, we mean using arts, culture, and the humanities to help solve community challenges. Our key research questions are: how can the cultural sector or creative economy innovatively intersect with governments and NGOs to advance work in these sectors, from housing to economic development to health, education, community building, and environmental stewardship? Now, this can be a hard concept to wrap one's head around, but we've been so fortunate to have a number of MNC PPC staff join the planning effort as members of our County Advisory Committee, including Director Sartori and Atul Sharma. And from their strategic thoughtfulness that they bring to the RFQ and RFP creation, to their ongoing guidance, we feel confident that this agency gets it. And I also love this example right here from Montgomery County, the Climate Crisis Center. For this project, the Department of Environmental Protection and Department of Health and Human Services Crisis Center came together to try to understand how climate change is disproportionately impacting Montgomery County's most vulnerable communities. Working with the Public Arts Trust, the agencies brought in artists to foster communication and engagement at the Crisis Center. And this process, it sparked intimate and hard conversations about resilience, climate change, and other issues such as housing insecurity. And they created beauty. Participants worked with the artists to create an interactive public art project in the lobby of the facility. And I love this example because it illustrates how arts and culture can advance the county's work in completely different areas, such as community resilience in the face of climate change. And it expands arts and culture through a participatory art-making project that transformed a drab building into something with cultural resonance and beauty. So we'll seek to answer all of our guiding questions with the goal of establishing cultural policies over a 10-year horizon that advance these priorities. The plan will seek to provide specific, actionable steps for AHCMC, MNC PPC, County Council, and arts, culture, and humanities organizations that they can take to further these priorities. And will try to align the county's resources across all of its agencies, from funding and facilities and land to programming, educational activities and catalytic projects to management of community planning and land development. We will seek adoption by Montgomery Planning, AHCMC's board, and the County Council to act in tandem with the Thrive 2050 general plan. And let me pause here to draw out some connections with Thrive 2050. First, as Mr. Sharma introduced, Thrive 2050 specifically recommended the creation of a cultural plan. So the Montgomery County Cultural Plan is a direct outcome. And in Thrive 2050's section on design, arts, and culture, recommendations focus on high-level changes to consider for land use, design, and zoning regulations, including zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations and processes to remove regulatory barriers. And the plan also encourages the creation of complete communities, which have a range of land uses, housing types, infrastructure, services, and amenities to meet a wide range of needs for a variety of people and support racial and socioeconomic integration. So the Montgomery County Cultural Plan will consider how complete communities design strategies relate to the use of cultural planning to achieve community well-being goals. And we'll also look beyond the built environment and place to programs and people to advance another Thrive 2050 recommendation. Support arts and cultural institutions and programming to educate, connect, and build communities that celebrate our diversity and strengthen pride of place. And now I'm pleased to pass it to my colleague, May Amoyab, Community Engagement Coordinator for the Cultural Plan.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is May, as Ann mentioned. We're now in the discover phase of the planning process with extensive opportunities for community engagement. And I just want to thank MNC PPC and specifically Deputy Director Bridget Brolier, as well as Atul Sharma. As we were refining our community engagement plan, they were so generous in their time and candidly shared lessons learned about what worked well and opportunities for improvement from Thrive 2050 and other recent small area planning efforts. For instance, in the workshop with our County Advisory Committee, Atul advised that we brief every council member at the beginning of the process and ask which constituents were important to them for us to include and their preferred modes of community engagement. This advice has already borne so much fruit. In our briefing call with Councilmember Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, she proposed that we hold a youth town hall and that she would partner on the effort. So just on March 31st, right in this very building, we had over 100 middle and high school students gathered to share their insights into their specific interests, needs, and ideas. The town hall introduced students to cultural planning and asked for their input on pressing issues facing their community and how art, culture, and creative expression might help us address them. The agenda featured dynamic and creative activities, guided group discussions, and recording by a graphic note taker and youth documentarians. And by the way, this was also another fantastic idea and recommendation from Bridget, who specifically suggested we engage bilingual, so Spanish-English graphic recorder, Renata Algalarando, based on the great work that she did for Thrive 2050. The event was held on a day Montgomery County schools were closed, so students received community service hours for attending. And now we'd like to share a brief highlighting video created by Action Youth Media. We were so excited to have the opportunity for the youth to document this event and shape its narrative. Oh, do I press play?
On what the culture plan and like how it can be improved.
I think having like a wide perspective, you're hearing it from the people that are living inside the community.
What is your favorite way to express yourself creatively?
Playing the trumpet, singing, like a cappella, yapping.
What types of event would you like to see in your community?
Parties with like food from all over and live music. Karaoke or art or drawing festivals.
What could we see more of in school?
More after school activities, more STEM programs, more like choices that like the students make. The students like never really get to make the choices.
I've never had a thorough talk with Stella, so I got to be able to grow closer with her and see how she sees things too, and it helped me understand that sixth graders or like younger students are so creative.
My favorite part was really like getting to hear other people's thoughts, how they thought that arts can help problems in this community, and really hearing other people's opinions.
Some people can be shy or kind of scared of sharing out and giving like their input on things, but once you're in a big community space, I think you're more comfortable or more likely to actually share out.
I mean, we're pretty similar, like we do a lot of the same things, but like hearing other people like inspires me and makes me think of like other things that I didn't think of before, and it allows me to improve my own ideas that I've thought of.
Thank you. We are also reaching residents across the county through artistic pop-up events called Cultural Preserves. Local artist Holly Bass designed this creative community engagement project in which people on the street are invited to contribute responses, to thoughtful questions and document them on rice paper preserved in mason jars through photography. People's responses to questions like, what makes this community home for you, will provide a fresh perspective on themes we will explore throughout the planning process, such as belonging. We will hold a cultural preserves event in each of the 7 county council districts, popping up at existing gathering places like farmers market, cultural and religious festivals, and food distribution centers. We just held our first event last month at MoComCon, and it was such a success that we actually ran out of rice paper. This creative engagement strategy was also shaped by our conversations with county council members and MNCPPC staff. They cautioned that members of the public may be reluctant to participate in a tabling event with a banner with a big government logo, especially in today's climate of mistrust. So we are trying to reach them through a fun, whimsical, and creative pop-up with multilingual team members that reflect the diversity of Montgomery County, helping to preserve their stories. Next is our online community survey. The survey will ask about residents' priorities for arts, culture, and heritage in Montgomery County. It'll also include questions for individual artists, creative sector businesses, and arts, culture, and humanities organizations. We've designed the survey to try to gather input from as many Montgomery County residents as possible. To that end, the survey will be available in English, Spanish, Amharic, Chinese, French, Korean, and Vietnamese. Based on advice from Bridget, we are also planning a physical postcard mailing. We're sending the postcard featured here to 82,000 households with Black, Asian, and Hispanic residents who reside in disadvantaged community equity index areas. These racial groups were identified as high-interest, low-influence stakeholder groups through our workshops with county and community advisors. Bridget also recommended that we provide financial incentives to boost participation, so we are including a raffle for 10 $100 gift cards. Everybody likes gift cards. We want to hear from as many community members as we can about their needs and priorities for art, culture, and heritage in Montgomery County. Using a technique called Meeting in a Box, we have developed a toolkit to enable interested stakeholders to lead their own community conversations. They can then share their findings to us to inform the plan. We will prepare and train the hosts and set them up for successful meetings to discuss topics such as creating a community where everyone belongs and can lead culturally rich lives, helping our artists and our cultural communities thrive, and using arts, culture, and the humanities to help solve community challenges. We are specifically recruiting hosts with relationships to high-priority stakeholder groups, from El Salvadorian residents to libraries, who might be missed through traditional engagement modes. But the community conversation training and toolkit is also open to anyone interested in hosting a meeting. We will also spread awareness of the cultural planning process by making brief presentations to several groups throughout the county, including this presentation. Through those presentations, we hope to broaden the circle of participants in the planning process by making connections with the people and the businesses, the boards represent. We're using dynamic live mini polls to increase real-time engagement. We plan to present in person or virtually to the Urban Partnership Boards, Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, Visit Montgomery, Montgomery County Public School Board, and others. In addition, we will visit several art and civics classrooms in widespread areas of the county, such as the Agricultural Reserve. In this way, we can gain input from youth who may not have been able to attend the Youth Town Hall. To reach core cultural sector creative economy stakeholders, we will conduct a series of in-person focus groups with creative professionals living and working in Montgomery County. We will ask them about their experiences creating, sustaining, and making a living from their work. We will also ask about how they provide access to art, culture, and the humanities for county residents, as well as how their creative work intersects with the work of the county. We will hold 6 small group conversations, 1 group for artists, creative and cultural practitioners or scholars, arts educators, and we'll also hold a group for small, mid-size, and large arts and culture and humanities nonprofits, and as well as creative for-profit businesses. How can you help? So we've already actually benefited so much from this agency through Director Sartori and Atul Sharma's strategic guidance as members of the County Advisory Committee, and they will continue to help shape and approve recommendations when we enter the envision phase of the planning process, so thank you. We'd love Montgomery Planning and MNC PPC's continued support to help connect to constituencies. For instance, we'd love if you all would help cross-promote the community survey as well as the cultural pop-up events that are happening in the county via email and social media. Our goal is to present the plan for adoption by February 2026 to 3 entities: the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County Board, Montgomery County Council, and this board, Montgomery Planning. So thank you again for having us this morning. We will follow up regarding specific engagement support requests, and you can also sign up for the cultural plan updates on the landing page. Thank you so much.
Wow, wow. This is beautiful. I'm so proud to be in a county that supports this, that's looking to see how we can use arts and humanities and heritage initiatives to make our communities better. And it's so, this is very, very, it really touches me. So thank you. We look forward to to how this plays out. We will do all we can to help support the activities that you're promoting. And when do you think this plan will be finished?
Our goal is to present the plan draft no later than about February 2026, and we're hoping that it could be ratified soon thereafter.
Okay, thank you. So any other comments or questions from my board members?
I just want to throw in my 2 cents for cheap housing is essential to the development of arts and culture and music like that. So let's not forget that the housing component of that when we're dealing with cultural development. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
I'm just curious that, do you have any idea or framework for the outcome of your work? You said that you're going to come back on February 26th to present us with the outcome. Do you have any idea what are the areas of focus and what are the deliverables that you're going to present? And is there an implementation or process to implement those? And is it funding? Who are the ones that would be involved? Who is going to be taking the lead to make sure that this is not a study, this is something that could actually has a feed and make it happen with all the support that it may need?
And yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So in terms of the areas of focus, we're trying to align our work under those 3 guiding values and priorities: belonging, cultural sector resilience, and intersectionality. So we'll be having recommendations specific to advancing those goals and priorities. And we are looking to have specific actionable steps for AHCMC, for MNC PPC, for County Council, as well as the actors in the cultural sector to advance those priorities. So when we have done cultural planning work for other localities, what we've often developed is as a matrix of recommendations. So you have the narrative in the plan itself, but then you can get very detailed, sort of, here's the high level goal, here's the tactic, and then what are the resources that require, who's the lead, who are the supporting partners. So it's very important to us that this have teeth, that it not just sit on the shelf. And so that's why we're thrilled to be in close partnership with MNC PPC and County Council, so that that all of these entities hopefully really own this and try to advance the priorities that the community shapes and these entities will endorse.
So maybe you could give us a couple of or two or three examples of the past success stories that when you did this kind of a study you just talked about that you had done. Could you bring us a couple of examples that you are very proud of that was as an outcome of the work that you did?
Yes, so in our work for Grand Rapids, Minnesota, they adopted a very comprehensive cultural plan with this detailed matrix guiding recommendations, and it really shaped their efforts over the next 10 years and was their roadmap for all of the work they did. We also recently completed the Chicago Monuments Project for the city of Chicago, which developed strategies for how that city could deal with racially problematic monuments across the city. And you might imagine that was some contentious work, but we're very proud of how we thread the needle to have recommendations that honored the consciences of the advisory committees, that were politically palatable, and that resulted in a $6.5 million Mellon grant to advance the creation of new work in the city of Chicago, which was the highest Mellon grant in the country to date. So, and furthermore, that work really stands out in terms of an example for others in our country and the world struggling with this issue. So how it provides a great example and template for others trying to do this work. So those are a few that come to mind.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you again. We look forward to you coming back with your draft of your report. So keep up the good work, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. And we're going to just
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much for giving us this opportunity.
our-
We look forward to continue to work together with you.
Yeah, it's
Thank
our
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll start with our last item, which is item number 6, Master Plan of Highways and Transitways Technical Update, 2024 Technical Update. Thank you. Good morning. We're on item number 6, Master Plan of Highways and Transitways 2024 Technical Update, where staff is requesting authorization to publish and transmit the revised draft of the Planning Board draft to the County Executive and the County Council. So welcome. This morning we have Sophia Aldridge presenting this item. Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, Sophia Aldridge from the Countywide Planning and Policy Division, and joining me here at the table is Karen Gauss-Dewar, also from Countywide Planning. So today, this is work session 4. We have, I typically start with the schedule. It's been a very long schedule, longer than we originally anticipated, but we're now at the final work session. And we anticipate, once we have your approval, transmitting the planning board draft to the council before the end of the month. For work session 4, we're going to go through 6 different sections. And these are all elements that won't be in the final version. So the first topic is classification revisions. Well, actually, the first item is we would like to ask planning board approval to change the name of this master plan from the 2024 update to the 2025 update. This was originally scheduled to be finished last fall, and it's taken this long. So we appreciate it, and yeah, I wish in hindsight maybe you'd left the year off. So thank you. We also, as part of this review, we have some slight revisions to some street classifications. Once we were, thought we were all done, we took one last check through. We found some places where there were some inconsistencies, some pretty glaring. And many of these were a product of the actual translations that were enforced by county code. And we'll go through those, ask for your comments, and then move on. So these are the 10 street classification revisions. And this is a summary of essentially the street segments, the recommendation that we presented to you before, the issue of why we're asking for a change, and the new recommendation. We've also provided, for your information, the previous target speed, the revised target speed based on the change recommendation, and the existing posting speed, so you can see by comparisons. And we can go through each of these. We have some graphics that show these, but the place where we have the target speeds is actually in this table alone. So I think what's important is when you look at that, you'll see that some of our revisions, like Comus Road, the revised target speed meets the existing posted speed. So job well done. Other places like Crabs Branch Way, the revised target speed is not changing, just the classification is changing. The target speed right now is 35. That just means we have some work to do, and that the cross-section that would be sort of adhered to from the Complete Streets Design Guideline would be for an industrial street, which accommodates wider vehicles. East Goody Drive, again, the classification change doesn't change the target speed. Again, it's an industrial street, so we would just want to reflect that that's the more appropriate category. And the ones where the different speed actually changed, Woodland Drive Extension, that actually was listed as planned town center street. And what we realized is that it was not in a town center. It was master planned in, I think, the Forest Glen, Montgomery Hills sector plan. But as we looked at this, we realized that it's really more of a neighborhood street. So this road segment would go out of the master plan of highways and transitways, and the target speed would go from 25 to 20, which if you've been on Woodland Drive, that's about right. So here is a graphic of a large part of the county and shows you that most of the changes were either in the Up County or I would say the Shady Grove area roughly. We do have one in Potomac as well and one along George Avenue. Again, I'm going to go through each one. Comus Road from I-270 to Maryland 355, Frederick Road. This was really on a border of an established town center. It was master planned, therefore, as a town center by our translation rules, but upon reflection and looking at it, it really seems more appropriate as a country connector, which is what it is, the other side of 270. This is Crabs Branch Way within the industrial area, and for a similar reason, East Goody Drive between Frederick Road and the eastern industrial area boundary, and those both have the same reasons. Frederick Road in Hyattstown. For some reason in our translations, this was changed to a country connector, which it's actually in a town center. I'm not sure how that happened, but it did. So we're making the request to change it to a town center so it matches the surrounding area type. Grand Elm Street between Snowden Farm Parkway and Piedmont Road. The other sections of Grand Elm, well, actually, I think this one was a judgment call. But we definitely wanted to be consistent with the Piedmont Road classification. This is a planned road that you may never see, but it is planned. It's called the Observation Drive Connector. It goes through an existing parking lot connecting Goldenrod Lane to Observation Drive. This was master planned in the Germantown employment areas master plan, and it was, through the translation, was identified as a town center street. It's not in a town center, and it's only a 2-lane master plan road. We really felt like this was just an area connector. In the future, if there's the ability to provide this road, we think it's an important connection. Connecting these two boulevards. Next road is Rothbury Drive from 700 feet west of Goshen Road to Goshen Road. And again, it's not in a town center, a translation error. We definitely feel like a neighborhood connector. It's more consistent. I think this was originally master planned as a downtown street. And the reason for that is that there's a shopping center right there at Rothbury and Goshen. But when you look at the other side of the street and the rest of the street, it's very clearly a neighborhood connector. So we feel like this is the appropriate classification. Snowden Farm Parkway between the Clarksburg Town Center boundary and Clarksburg Road. It's the section shown in white and orange. This was recently completed within the past couple of years. It's a two-lane road. And for, I'm not sure what reason, it was erroneously classified as a downtown street. And since it's built, one, it's not planned anymore. And while it is in the suburban area, we felt for continuity's sake, it touches the town center on both sides. So it would just make sense to make it a town center street. And I think this is the last one, South Glen Road, between Deep Glen Drive and Falls Road. It's now classified as a country road. This was classified as part of some of the older rustic road plans. And the idea was that the country road was a sort of a buffer between a rustic road and a neighborhood streets. I think with complete streets, we're not sure that that buffer designation is really that appropriate anymore. So the change classification is really to have it consistent with South Glen Avenue. If you notice to the west, it's an area connector, so it's just extending the area connector designation. Oh, and one more, Woodland Drive extended, as I mentioned. Pretty narrow street, identified as a town center street, planned. This road section is not complete. And our revised recommendation is a neighborhood street, which this would be removed from the master plan of highways and transitways. So those are the 10 sections, so I'll take a pause if you have any questions.
I have no questions about your revised designations. Just out of curiosity, did you get comments from the community to make these changes, or was it just going through your final?
This was just going through our final checks. You know, we sort of gave it the eyeball test. We pulled our maps up and we looked and we just said, there's something just not seem right. And after all this review, we hope we had gotten everything correct, but we found these 10 locations, so.
Well, thank you for doing a thorough final review. So any other comments or questions?
I do have a question about the reduction in speed limits from 40 to 25 miles per hour. Was there any community comment with regards to this, or is this in compliance with the overall goal in the plan?
So for all of these, excuse me, the change is not in the posted speed limit, the change is in the master plan target speed. And so what that just means is that is the long-range goal that the speed would want to be that we would want to achieve. So it's not Montgomery County DOT and the State Highway Administration do. We're simply saying that at some point in time, we would like the speed limit to be at the target speed. And if it's not possible, it's not possible. From the planning level, you know, we set this, and then DOT tries to do things to make the target speed reach that. And in many places, they may not be able to do that. I hope that answers your question.
Well, actually, I had that question too, because when we have like recommended or goal of 20 mile, and then the posted is 40, I understand what you're saying, but there is a discrepancy. Is it that when this document is published, is any kind of activity going to happen? Someone review it, or no? It just happens that if they're going to do some kind of improvement to one of these roads, then they would look at the recommendation.
They will look at, whenever there is maintenance or new road construction or rehabilitation, they would try to see if they could achieve the target speed.
Okay.
And I think, you know, while we had goals of lower speeds, what we found is that too often, you know, engineers working under contract to DOT would come in and they would just say, well, the design speed is 35, and so we're designing it at 35 miles an hour. We're like, well, we have a target speed. We'd like you to design it for something lower if you can. So, you know, that's really was part of what drove the idea of target speeds, is to eventually get our streets and drivers driving at a safer speed that fits with the road. Because we can't just lower posted speeds automatically, especially if we're going from 40 to 20.
Yeah.
People
Okay.
just won't comply automatically. We have to make the road be self-enforcing, essentially. All right, thank you. We're now going to section 2, which is in your packet, the track changes version of the master plan of highways and transitways and all the appendices. Just for this discussion, I'm just going to talk through it. What we provided is, basically a markup so that you can see where we're making changes. So in every table, when we changed a classification or we changed a target speed, you would see a strikeout and then an addition. And that is for the entire report and the appendices, and as well for the climate assessment, which we'll talk about later. I did want to note that if we have your approval to finalize this and move it forward, we may also be doing some slight editing just to either change some words, double check all the figure and table references, etc., which typically when we make the final version of a master plan to send on to the county council, there's usually a couple changes we have to make. Okay, so that is that. The actual markup in your attachments is, a couple hundred pages long and a lot of reviews, but we've checked very carefully to make sure that all the comments and responses that we've gone through in the last 4 work sessions are included in this marked up version.
I just had one question. When I looked at figure 24, I was just wanted to, it was small, so maybe I couldn't find it, but it was showing what were the roads that were staying in. I think that was figure 24. I'm not sure if you.
All right.
Yeah.
Just a second, and I will pull up the actual.
So the question was, which piece, I just wanted to confirm which pieces were of M83 were in or out. You couldn't see, I couldn't see, but because I was reading it improperly, to just confirming.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. So figure 24. What's that? Okay, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, could you repeat your question?
I was just trying to identify which pieces of, did the graph show which pieces of M83 are in. I couldn't see it on the.
Okay, so this.
I can't see your screen now.
Sure. Is there a way to?
Or maybe I was looking at the wrong figure,
Okay.
There you go. Before M83.
Okay, so let's. Yeah, Okay, and I can zoom in a little bit on this. And that wasn't zoomed. Okay, so figure 24 shows the transit ways. So it's not the road network. Yeah,
Was
so
your,
this,
just to chime in for a second here, David Ansbacher, Division Chief, figure 4 looks at Mid-County Highway, is that what you're looking at?
I was thinking I should have been looking at 24, maybe it was another one to see where the change of what's in and what's out in terms of M83. So which one is that one?
okay, yeah, so this is figure 4, and it's a slightly different orientation than the other maps, but you can see here is that 27 is Ridge Road, and then Montgomery Village Avenue is right here by Lake Whetstone, and that is the northern section that you did, folks did vote and remove.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
great. I was just confirming. Thank you.
All right. All right, section 3, we provided a racial equity and social justice section. This is required for all master plans and I believe ZTAs. We have a location on our Montgomery Planning website where we, actually, I'm sorry. This actually is a statement that will be included in the master plan. And this is essentially a summary of that. And this actually might be word for word what is in the marked up document. And second page, we talked a little bit about outreach and how we tried to include people in different ways, including technology, having meetings in person and virtual, and then how we made materials accessible as possible. So here, planning staff recommendation is asking the planning board to approve the racial equity and social justice statement. It's included as chapter 3 in the master plan of highways and transitways. Okay, great.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
here? When we do this assessment, don't we have to look at the impact of changing the classifications or removal some of the master plan sections and its impact on, racial equity? Isn't that what we have to do? And I'm not sure that, if that requires any kind of analysis rather than just outreach. Because I didn't see anything that the changes in this amendment has no impact. I think we are looking for something like that.
Well, just again, David Ansbacher, going back to the original scope of work, the street classification changes in the master plan of highways and transitways are to implement two of the county council's bills that provided direction on how street classifications were to be updated as part of the master plan. We are simply, to a large extent, implementing the requirements in that bill. So our understanding and thought process with the racial equity and social justice statement was that this is largely about engagement and letting folks know in the community what we've been directed to do by the two bills.
What about the removal of the northern section of M83? That's a big deal.
Certainly agreed that obviously that was not as part of the original scope of work. That transpired as part of the public hearing process. What we, of course, tried to do and what is included in the racial equity and social justice statement is the extensive outreach that the staff and the planning board did to inform the community. It is not typical during a public hearing process and before the work sessions for staff to do remaining engagement. Sophia, Karen, and others did extensive engagement. And as you'll recall, we picked up the planning board and we moved the hearing actually closer to the community, which is something that, as far as I can recall, has not happened in a long time. So we did try to use the different approaches that we could, acknowledging that we were in the public hearing phase of the process.
I understand. I was not questioning at all your public outreach. I know you have done the public outreach and you have received all the different aspects of the community. That was not, actually my question was saying that shouldn't we see the other impact in addition to this that we have done? I do not know that when we are talking about impact in regard to racial equity and social justice, is it just the communication, or is it when we plan something or we remove something that was planned, what is the impact to the community? That's what I was questioning. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Is some of that impact come out in the climate change piece that you do?
I would say to some extent, yes. There is an element in the climate assessment that does look at a bunch of different factors, whether something is positive or negative environmentally. But it doesn't focus specifically on, I would say, equity categories. So it's probably more generalized.
Okay. And maybe something to think about as we go in. But go ahead. I believe you checked the boxes here. In my point of view. Yeah. Okay.
All right, section 4, the climate assessment. The purpose of the climate assessment is to evaluate the anticipated impact of master plans on the county's contribution to addressing climate change. The scope is limited to addressing climate change, specifically the effects of land use recommendations in master plans and ZTAs on greenhouse gas emissions and carbon sequestration, and how actions proposed by master plans and ZTAs could improve the county's adaptive capacity to climate change and increase community resilience. So this master plan is a little different in that this master plan doesn't make any land use recommendations. So, I think starting off, the impact of the master plan from a climate perspective is going to be very, very limited. But here are a couple more items to and this is written in the viewpoint of the planning board, so it's pending your approval. But certainly planning staff anticipates that most of the technical update recommendations will have positive minor impacts and a few minor negative impacts on the county's goal of addressing greenhouse gas emissions. Insignificant negative impacts on carbon sequestration and minor to moderately positive, or in some cases, no significant impacts on community resilience and adaptive capacity. And I think it's the community resilience and adaptive capacity that that sort of focuses more a little bit on equity. Removal of M83, however, would result in significant positive greenhouse gas and carbon sequestration impacts, which, depending on location of equity communities, could be seen as positive, and indeterminate negative impacts on accessibility to community and public spaces, access to transportation options, and community connectivity. On the flip side, removing M83 would have significant positive impacts on heat-related impacts, exposure to noise, forest cover, non-forest tree canopy, and other green areas, pervious cover, stormwater quality and quantity, and air quality. That one's pretty much a no-brainer. You get rid of a road, and there's going to be a lot of environmental benefits. That's a part of our evaluation, but a very important part. So that, in summary, is our climate assessment. It's a longer document, but it will not be included as a chapter in the Master Plan of Highways. It will be included as an appendix, and will also be posted on the Montgomery Planning Climate Assessment page, which is where we post all of our ZTAs and master plans, the climate assessment results. So again, our staff recommendation is requesting the planning board to approve the final climate assessment. Okay, thank you. Section 5 is engagement. In master plans, we provide an engagement appendix as part of the document to really sort of scope out exactly how all the efforts we went into to engage the public. And so this is sort of some of the summaries from that, which is, the Master Plan of Highways and Transitways is a highly technical functional master plan. It can have a wide range of impacts on development and redevelopment along county and state streets within the county. The project team provided the following activities to help inform the development of our recommendations. We developed a technical advisory group at the beginning of the project, and we met on a regular basis for several months with Montgomery County DOT to really sort of focus in on what are some areas we need to address. We tried to also talk at a high level on topics such as some of the reclassifications that were going to occur and whether there were concerns from DOT about those reclassifications. And the one I can think of in general would be many county connectors, some portions of those that were bordering on some of the more urban areas went to area connectors, which would essentially lead to a reduced master plan target speed. And we just wanted to get their sense of, are you okay with that? Do you have specific concerns about certain locations? And if you do, we could make those changes. So that was really a great benefit of having the technical advisory group. We then did community engagement. Certainly early on in the project, I gave presentations at several of the regional service centers with municipalities, civic associations, advocacy groups, and some of those, it was both in person and online. I had one night when I had 3 meetings all at once, which was a challenge. I actually got Clark Larson to go to one of them for me because that one was in person. So thank you, Clark. In addition, I think the importance of this master plan update was that we were implementing really the vision of making the transfer to a complete streets paradigm, and which was the focus of the county council bills. But we felt like we really needed to improve how we explained what complete streets means and what the different street types are and how they benefit the public. So with the help of, actually not the help of communications, with a lot of the work from communications, they made some great videos, which are now provided on our Complete Streets page. And as part of our master plan, we had a link to those. When people would say, well, what is an area connector? They could actually go and see a video where we talk about what makes it an area connector significant. In addition, as we started getting into the outreach, we created online maps. And we realized this is a very technical project, and we had a lot of recommendations that we're making. We needed to figure a way to get people's comments on those recommendations, but also to have those maps just to allow the public to comment on anything. So what was important about the maps is that it wasn't limited to just the recommendations. You could click on any road link and make a comment. So that is the engagement appendix, which I believe is included as one of your attachment. I'll stop for a second to see if you have any questions about that. No? Okay, excellent. Section 6 is our detailed spreadsheet providing all of the comments and responses and also the testimony. So within this section, there are over 1,450 pages of written testimony with 685 total comments with responses provided in the spreadsheet. And we grouped them into broad categories so that as we were trying to address them, we could make sure that we had, we had them sort of categorized correctly. And in some cases, when we did this, this was helpful because, not all the comments were the same. Sometimes we would get comments that would have a couple points, and we'd have to figure out do we break this up into three different comments, or are two of them really part of the same comment? So we spent a lot of time doing that and coming up with responses, which again we reviewed that with you in the previous work sessions. This also includes a lot of comments where people agreed with our comments, and we said thank you. There are also places where they pointed out errors, which I think we talked about in previous work sessions, where we said thank you for pointing that out, we'll make that change. And there are also many places where we disagreed with the public comment, and those were more specifically the ones that we addressed with you folks in the previous work sessions. So this is the end of the presentation, and we have several recommendations we'd like to make to the planning board. The first is their approval to retitle the planning board draft to the master plan of highways and transitways as the 2025 update instead of the 2024 update. Perfect. Next is to approve the 10 street reclassification changes that I presented today. Third is to approve the racial equity and social justice statement. The fourth is to approve the revised climate assessment. And the last one is to authorize planning staff to publish and transmit the revised draft as the planning board draft of the Master Plan of Highways and Transitways 2025 technical update to the county council and the county executive. And turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. This is a lot of great work. I know it took longer than you expected. We threw a little curveball when we asked to look at M83, and we appreciate all the hard work and helping us understand the implications of leaving it in or taking it out. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to you submitting it to the county council and the county executive, and with any minor technical changes to create consistency or minor word changes. So thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? No. Do I have a motion to authorize to publish and transmit the revised draft as the planning board draft to the county executive and the council with these recommendations here?
Yeah. I'll move to approve the recommendations from the planning staff and authorize planning staff to publish and transmit the revised draft as a planning board draft. The master plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And, yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And this ends our planning board meeting for today, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.